Welcome ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to FudgeMuppet. My name is Scott and today I present to you a big undertaking, a video that encompasses all of the history from the third era in the Elder Scrolls universe. If you do enjoy this kind of video, do please give it a like. It lets us know that you love it and that you want more. The first and second era explained videos are linked in the description below, and there is definitely a plan to do this for the fourth era as well, and perhaps even the Dawn and Merethic eras, but they can get a little bit unprecise and a bit more hazy with a lack of concrete dates. But without further ado, let's get into the video. This is the third era explained. So we left the end of the second era with Tiber Septim bringing complete unification to Tamriel for the first time in history, ending the wars, strife, and false emperors of the second era. Year 1 of the third era would mark the beginning of the Septum Dynasty. After Tiber Septim established a centralized monarchy in Morrowind, in order to have easier control of the province, King Athin Lethlin was chosen in the year 6 of the third era. Grace of all gods, King of Morrowind, Duke of Mournhold, defender of the people and the law, loyal servant of the Emperor and Empire. Year 12 of the third era, Encyclopedia Tamrielica is first published. In the year 20, Destri Melarg is born in the city-state of Rihard in Hammerfell. He would become a famed and accomplished historian of Redguard culture and language. In the year 38 of the third era, arguably the most famous person in all of Tamrielic history, Emperor Tiber Septim, died. Upon his death, it was said to have reigned for an entire fortnight, as if the land of Tamriel itself was weeping. His grandson Pelagius is crowned emperor. Year 39 of the third era, Destri Melarg begins study at the age of 19 in the Imperial City, where he would encounter the cosmopolitan Breton, Nordic and Dunmeri cultures. He would have a very productive and valued career. He wrote important historical texts like Divad the Singer, Redguards, Their History and Their Heroes, and Notes for Redguard History. Year 41. Emperor Pelagius is assassinated by the Dark Brotherhood, leaving no direct heir to the throne. Pelagius's first cousin, once removed, Kintyra, the daughter of Tiber Septim's brother, Agnorith, is crowned empress. The former queen of Silvanar was blessed with time of prosperity and good harvests, and was an avid patroness of art, music, and dance. 7 years later, year 48 of the third era, Empress Kintyra dies and her son Uriel I is crowned after her death. Year 55, Prince Antiochus, son of the future Emperor Pelagius II, is born, though some sources would state that he is born in the year 51, 4 years prior. Year 63. In the autumn of the year, Prince Pelagius, son of Uriel II, who is the son of Emperor Uriel I, came to the High Rock city-state of Camlorn to pay court to the daughter of King Volstade. Her name was Quintilla, the most beauteous princess in Tamriel, skilled at all maidenly skills, and an accomplished sorceress. 11 years a widower with a young son named Antiochus, Pelagius arrived at court to find the city-state was being terrorized by a great demon werewolf. Instead of romantic pursuit, Pelagius and Quintilla together went out to save the kingdom. With his sword and her sorcery, the beast was slain, and by the powers of mysticism, Quintilla chained the beast's soul to a gem. Pelagius had made the gem into a ring and married her, but it was said that the soul of the wolf stayed with the couple until the birth of their first child. That child would be Patima, the Wolf Queen. Year 64, Emperor Uriel I dies and is succeeded by his son Uriel II. Tragically, the rule of Uriel II is cursed with blights, plagues, and insurrections. The tender-heartedness inherited from his father does not serve the land well, and little justice is done. Year 67 of the third era, Patima, the future Queen of Solitude, is born, the only daughter and second child of Pelagius II. Year 77, Uriel Septim, the third child of Pelagius II, is born, and in the year 79, Magnus Septim, the fourth child of Pelagius II, is born. At 13 years old, year 80, Fatima is promised to King Antiochus of Solitude to smooth relations with the Northern Kingdom. Year 81, 1 year later, the 14-year-old Princess Fatima marries the 62-year-old King Antiochus of Solitude. Antiochus was said to have loved her greatly and allowed her all that she wished. Year 82, Emperor Uriel II dies after an 18-year reign marred by poor financial and judicial management, leaving a mess of debt and problems for his son and successor, Emperor Pelagius II, who would be crowned this year. Year 97, Uriel Septim III, known as Uriel Mantiarco at this point, is born to Fatima Septim and King Mantiarco. In the year 98, Empress Pelagius II dies after a 17-year reign. Year 99, Antiochus, the first son of Pelagius II, is crowned emperor and began a reign rife with civil wars. Pelagius II's wife Quintilla dies, with her only regret being that she would not live to see her grandson Uriel III's coronation as King of Solitude. Year 100 of the Third Era, King Mantiarco of Solitude dies, and Uriel Septim III rules Solitude jointly with his mother Queen Fatima. In the year 104 of the Third Era, Princess Kintyra II is born to Antiochus and his second wife, Gisla. In the next year, year 105, the Obsculus Lamei Bal Tarmeza Morti is translated by the University of the Gwillem Press, revealing the tale of Lamei Bealfalg and her transformation into the first vampire. By the year 109, the obese and lecherous Emperor Antiochus, 10 years into his reign, has done little to impress his subjects and has exhibited unquenchable hedonism. His half-brother, Magnus Septim, is now married to a Cyrodiilic queen named Helena, and together they manage the affairs of Blackmarsh in Lilmoth. Sephirus Septim, Antiochus's other half-brother, and his wife Bianchi rule over the Hammerfell kingdom of Galain and have a healthy brood of children. The War of the Isle begins in the year 110 of the Third Era. The province of the Somerset Isles is nearly lost to the Marima, the Sea Elves. However, an alliance of the Somerset kings and Antiochus only managed to just defeat King Orgnum of Pyendinia due to a freak storm, and this storm would be later credited to the Sigic Order. In the year 111 of the Third Era, the Knights of the Nine are founded by Sir Arniel Lannis, a hero from the War of the Isle. The order attracted many prestigious knights, and they would retrieve 4 of the 8 relics of Pelennor Whitestrake. And in the year 119, Pelagius III is born to Magnus Septim, the 4th child of Pelagius II. Year 120, the Emperor Antiochus dies, and his daughter is crowned Empress Kintyra II. Queen Fatima would give a speech to the Elder Council in an attempt to have Empress Kintyra II invalidated, paving the way for her son to become emperor. My most august and wise friends, members of the Elder Council, I am but a provincial queen, and I can only assume to bring to issue what you yourselves must have already pondered. She continued to praise the late emperor. He was a true septim and a great warrior, destroying with your counsel the near-invincible armada of Pyendinia. After the flattery, she came to her final point. The Empress Magna unfortunately did nothing to temper my brother's lustful spirits. In point of fact, no whore in the slums of the city spread out on more beds than she. Had she attended to her duties in the imperial bedchamber more faithfully, we would have a true heir to the empire, not the half-wit milksop bastards who call themselves the Emperor's children. The girl called Kintyra is popularly believed to be the daughter of Magna and the captain of the guard. It may be she is the daughter of Magna and the boy who cleans the cistern. We can never know for sure, not as certainly as we can know the lineage of my son, Uriel, the last of the Septum Dynasty. Despite her speech, Kintyra II was still crowned, while Fatima and her son Uriel III went back to Solitude to prepare a rebellion. In the year 121 of the Third Era, Uriel III bought the support of several disgruntled kings of High Rock, Skyrim, and Morrowind, and with Queen Fatima's assistance coordinated 3 attacks on the Septim Empire. The first attack occurred in the Iliac Bay that separates High Rock and Hammerfell. Kintyra II's entourage was destroyed, and the Empress was taken captive, though many believe she was executed, and so begins the War of the Red Diamond. Uriel III takes over the imperial city in a fortnight and abandons his last name Mantiarco in favor of the name Septim. He proclaims himself Emperor Uriel Septim III. Uriel Septim III, with the support of Skyrim and Northern Morrowind, must face off against his uncles, Magnus and Sephirus Septim, who have the support of all of High Rock. The rest of the provinces, elsewhere, Valenwood, Somerset Isles, Hammerfell and the like, were divided between both sides, but the majority of kings ended up supporting Magnus and Sephirus. Year 123, the rightful Empress Kintyra II secretly dies in her cell. A truly tragic story for Kintyra. In the fateful year of 127, Uriel III is captured at the Battle of Ichdag in Hammerfell. En route to his trial in the imperial city, a mob overtakes his carriage and burns him alive within it. His captor and uncle continues on to the imperial city and by common acclaim becomes Emperor Sepphoris I. Sepphoris' reign is marked by nothing but war, unfortunately. The empire acquiesces to demands for greater autonomy from the nobility of all the outlying provinces except elsewhere. It takes Sepphoris an additional 10 years of constant warfare to defeat his sister Patima. By the year 131, the Knights of the Nine have disbanded, ruined by the War of the Red Diamond, calling the many knights to battle. In year 133, the famous historian and translator Destri Malag dies, leaving many of his unfinished histories and untranslated verse. Year 134, it was this year, or perhaps slightly earlier, that the East Empire Trading Company would be founded. Year 137 of the Third Era is the year that would mark the end of the War of the Red Diamond. After a month-long siege of her castle in solitude, the Wolf Queen Patima would die at the age of 70, but not before she would give Pelagius III, son of Magnus Septim, a soul gem infused with the spirit of a werewolf. The very same werewolf that Quintilla and Pelagius II had killed and soul captured. Pelagius III becomes the ruler of Solitude, and the War of the Red Diamond ends. In the year 140, Emperor Sepphoris Septim falls off his horse, unfortunately, and dies. He would be succeeded by his younger brother, Emperor Magnus Septim. Pelagius III married Cataria, a Dunmer woman, in the year 141 of the Third Era. Year 145, Emperor Magnus Septim dies, and his son Pelagius III is crowned emperor and leaves Solitude to rule in the imperial city. Pelagius' sister Joleth Septim rules Solitude in his stead. Come the year 147 of the Third Era. Already infamous in Skyrim for his own eccentricities, Pelagius III's mind deteriorated drastically during his 2-year reign over Tamriel. He embarrassed dignitaries, offended his vassal kings, and on one occasion marked the end of a grand ball by attempting to hang himself. His madness is speculated to have been caused by Patima the Wolf Queen, with the passing of the soul gem containing the soul of the demonic werewolf. The madness of Pelagius eventually cost him the throne. Empress Cataria, a shrewd diplomat, hand-selected by Magnus to be Pelagius' wife in order to hide his son's maddening problems, was made Empress Regent of Tamriel 2 years into his reign, and Pelagius III declared himself incompetent to reign. Pelagius III, also known as Pelagius the Mad, would spend the rest of his life with healers in asylums. It is the year 150 of the Third Era, and the last sighting of the Knights of the Nine founder, Sir Uriel Lanius, is made by a traveller, witnessing the knight living alone in the Priory of the Nine. The famous siege of Abernat in Morrowind also occurs this year. Rangadil, commander of the Temple Ordinators, leads the Ordinators and the Buoyant Armigers in a battle against the Sixth House. Year 153 marks the death of Pelagius the Mad. At age 34, he tragically died in his cell at the Temple of Kinnereth on the Isle of Bethany. In great controversy, Cataria is formally made Empress of Tamriel. Cataria's 46-year reign is later remembered as one of the most glorious in Tamriel's history. Cataria travels extensively throughout the empire, as no emperor had since Tiber Septim's day. She repaired much of the damage that broken alliances and bungled diplomacy had created. The people of Tamriel come to love their empress, though many of the nobles are not as fond. At some point during this year, Sir Uriel Lanius dies attempting to recover the helm of the Crusader in the Shrine of the Crusader in the Aelid ruin of Vanua. Rangadil Ketil, commander of the Ordinators, dies in the year 195 at the age of 288. The 3rd century of the Third Era opens with the death of Empress Cataria, year 200. Her death happened during a minor skirmish in Blackmarsh, and many a conspiracy theorist historian is interested in the supposed involvement of a disenfranchised branch of the Septim family. Her son with Pelagius III, Cassander, is crowned Emperor Cassander. However, he is already middle-aged and in poor health. Year 202, Emperor Cassander dies after a 2-year reign. Uriel Lariat, Cassander's half-brother and the child of Cataria I and her imperial consort, abdicates the throne of Wayrest to reign as Emperor Uriel IV. Legally, he was Uriel Septim IV. Cassander had adopted him into the family when he had become king of Wayrest. Nevertheless, to many of the people of Tamriel, Uriel IV is a bastard child of Catariah. Uriel does not possess the skill of his mother, and his 43-year-long reign becomes a hotbed of sedition. Uriel Septim IV dies in the year 247. Andorak, Uriel IV's son, was disinherited by vote of the council, and a cousin more closely related to the original Septim line was proclaimed Emperor Sepphoris II. For the first 9 years of Sepphoris II's reign, those loyal to Andorak battled the imperial forces. The council granted Andorak the High Rock Kingdom of Shornhelm to end the war, and Andorak's descendants still rule there. In the year 249 of the Third Era, the devastating invasion of the Cameron usurper begins. Haemon Cameron, as he was originally known, served as sorcerer and advisor to Cameron Kaltos, a military leader and tactician of Valenwood. Haemon, in league with Kaltos and Kaltos' chief scout, Orban Elmlock, began their usurpation. They quickly and violently freed the Bosma from the Empire, taking 2 years to do so, and then proceeded northward. After the destruction of one of the first conquered cities, Kvatch, Kaltos pleaded with Haemon to end the madness and return to Valenwood. Haemon then turned on Kaltos, forcing Kaltos to flee for his life. Year 253, the forebear cities of Rihad and Tanith in Hammerfell request aid from Elenhir to defend against the Cameron usurpers' invasion, but they are denied by Elenhir, leading to the Battle of Dragontooth, where Cameron defeats Rihad and Tanith, taking control of southern Hammerfell. Year 267, the Cameron usurper had cut a bloody swath from Valenwood to High Rock, but was finally defeated by Baron Othrock and his allies, who had assembled the second largest navy of history and gallantly fought the usurper in the Battle of Firewaves. In the next year, year 268, Emperor Uriel Septim V succeeds his father, Sepphoris II. Eager to change the perception of the Empire and their previous ineffectiveness in dealing with the Cameron usurper, he planned a series of invasions to demonstrate the Empire's power and glory. He looks east towards Akavir, conquering many island kingdoms in between. In the year 271, the island kingdom of Roskria is conquered. In year 276, the island kingdom of Kathnoque is conquered. In the year 279, the island kingdom of Inslee is conquered. And in the year 282, the Black Harbour of Ezroniet is conquered. And 2 years later, in the year 284, Ezroniet is conquered in its entirety when Prince Bashamon surrenders to Uriel Septim. Uriel can now concentrate fully on his plans to invade Akavir. Year 285, Uriel Septim VI is born, son of Uriel Septim V and his imperial consort Thonica. This happens shortly before the Emperor leaves for Akavir. In the year 288, Emperor Uriel Septim V assembles the largest fleet ever recorded in history and sets sail to invade Akavir. 6 weeks later, he would arrive in Sisi territory. The towns of Septima and Ionith would be established on Akaviri soil. This year, the Emperor's twin daughters, Morihatha and Eliza, are born. Year 289, problem after problem, crazy sea storms, lack of communication and supplies, all would ultimately lead to the disastrous failure of the invasion. The Sisi attempt to assassinate the Emperor at Ionith, but are foiled by the 10th Legion. However, in the year 290, Uriel Septim V would be killed on the battlefield at Ionith, resulting in the abandonment of the invasion of Akavir. His 5-year-old son, Uriel Septim VI, would be crowned emperor, and his mother Empress Regent until he would come of age. The first major event in the 4th century of the Third Era is the official installment of Uriel VI as emperor, now that he had come of age, 22 years old, in the year 307. During his mother's regency, the Elder Council would hold the true power in the Empire, but by the year 313, Uriel Septim VI manages to strong-arm the Elder Council with the use of his spy network and personal guards to assume true control of the Empire. In the year 314, Uriel's sister Eliza gives birth to Pelagius IV. Year 320, Uriel Septim VI had a fateful fall from his horse and cannot be saved by the finest of imperial healers. His sister Morihatha is crowned empress as he had no children. Empress Morihatha commissions the 2nd edition pocket guide to the Empire in the year 331 to reflect the changes that have occurred in the Empire in the 375 years since the 1st edition was published. Year 375, Eliza Septim, twin sister of Morihatha, dies of a fever. And 4 years later, year 339, Empress Morihatha is murdered by assassins. Argonian councillor Thorocles Romus is found guilty of the crime, despite declaring innocence, and he is executed. Her nephew, child of the late Uriel Septim, is crowned Emperor Pelagius IV. Year 344, the University of the Gwillem Press publishes and distributes a book called Frontier Conquest and Accommodation, a Social History of Cyrodiil, better known as Frontier Conquest. Year 345, the Bible of the Deep Ones is given to the founder of Hackdirt, Erlav Moslin, by the Chief of the Deep Ones. Yes, Hackdirt is that creepy-ass town in Cyrodiil with the crazy Lovecraftian cultists. Year 346, Pelagius IV's son, Uriel Septim VII, is born this year. Year 354, Lysandus, the future king of Daggerfall, was born to Queen Nilfgaard and King Arslan II. The Book of the Dragonborn is written in the year 360 at Waynon Priory by Prior Emmeline Madrine. Emperor Pelagius IV dies in the year 368, leaving the throne to Uriel Septim VII at only 22 years of age. Year 370, the Eternal Champion, the protagonist of the Elder Scrolls I Arena, is born. 2 years later, year 372, the Apprentice, aka the unnamed hero of the Elder Scrolls Battlespire, who would defeat Mehrunes Dagon, is born in this year. And 3 years later after that, year 375, the protagonist of the Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall, known as the Agent, is born. And in the year 376, the future king of Morrowind, King Helseth, is born to Queen Baranziah and Symmachus. Year 377, King Arslan II of Daggerfall dies, leaving the throne to his son Lysandus. Meanwhile, Uriel Septim VII's son, Prince Geldal, is born. The near future would bring Uriel and his wife Kaula 2 more children, Prince Enman in the year 378 and Prince Ebel in the year 380. Year 383, it is this year or perhaps earlier that Count Janus Hassildor of Skingrad and his wife are infected by vampires. Year 385, the King of Camelon had discovered Jagar Tharn's plot for treachery, but upon writing a letter to the Emperor, he was assassinated, and the letter would never reach Uriel Septim. Uriel Septim VII's rule had been coloured by great governance and unity. He had the diligence of his grand-aunt Moriatha, the political skill of his grand-uncle Uriel VI, and the military prowess of his great-grandfather Uriel V. But come the year 389, Uriel is betrayed by his battle mage Jagar Tharn and imprisoned in Oblivion. So begins the Imperial Simulacrum, where Jagar Tharn, using powerful illusion magic, disguises himself as Emperor and rules in his stead. Year 391, Symmachus, the husband of Queen Baranziah and father of Helseth, dies. Year 394, the 5-year war breaks out. The Bosma of Valenwood and Khajiit of Elsewhere would engage in many battles and skirmishes over the border territories. The Bosma claimed it began when Khajiit bandits started attacking wood caravans heading for Valenwood. However, the Khajiit claimed the war began in the year 395 with the slaughter of Torval, where the Bosma killed over 1,000 citizens before being forced to retreat by reinforcements from a nearby jungle tribe. The Khajiit would lose the Battle of Zelnan in addition due to a tactic proposed by some Nord advisors from Solitude. The Khajiit were using heavy armor with which they were not skilled enough. The turning point of the war came in the year 396 for the Khajiit, in the battle when they got rid of the Nord advisors and wore their traditional medium armor. This battle is depicted on the tapestry Heart of Anaquina. The battle at Fort Sphinxmoth followed near the city of Dune, where the Khajiit won, even though they were outnumbered, by using some unconventional tactics. It was this same year that the Arnesian War would begin between the Argonians and the Dunmer. What started as a simple slave revolt in the House Dresslands to the south escalated into a full war between Morrowind and Blackmarsh. The cause of the war was the death of a Dunmer trader named Rorus, who was later canonized into a saint by the Tribunal Temple. He was captured by the Argonian rebels, and when he refused to denounce his faith, he was brutally tortured and murdered. When news of his death reached the rest of Morrowind, war was declared on Blackmarsh. Morrowind's armies ultimately defeat the Argonians and expanded Morrowind's territory to the south. The year is 397 and the war between Bosma and Khajiit still wages. After a truce was made between the warring sides, Khajiit broke it by crossing the Xylo River and attacking Valenwood's borders. One of their first targets was the village of Athay. They burned the harbour and left only a handful of survivors. The nearby village of Grenos was destroyed soon after as well. The desperate Bosmeri survivors of the recent truce-breaking attacks retreated to the ancient hamlet of Vindisi, where, being forced by the impending Khajiit attack, summoned a wild hunt that completely destroyed the attacking forces. After being sealed off in the valley where Vindisi was located, the wild hunt turned on itself in a horrid display of a cannibalistic orgy, destroying the hamlet and all of its former mer-turned-monster occupants. It was in this year that the Bosmer would also enter into the War of the Blue Divide. Named for the body of water separating them, the War of the Blue Divide pitted Somerset Isles and its former ally Valenwood against each other. After a vicious but short war, Somerset defeated Valenwood, gaining several coastal islands as a result of the war. The most notable damage from the war was when the Altmeri destroyed many of Valenwood's harbours. Meanwhile, the War of Bendramak was also beginning in the northwest of Tamriel. Skyrim defeated the forces of Hammerfell and Hyrok and took many miles of eastern parts of these provinces, including the cities of Elenhir and Gehenna. Some of these territories were claimed to have been lost in previous wars at the expense of Skyrim. The war resulted in a deeper division between the Redguard factions of Crowns and Forebears, as the Forebear cities showed no inclination to help the Crown cities assaulted and occupied by the Nords, which in turn was a response to the lack of help by the Crowns to the Forebears during the Cameron usurpers' invasion. The resistance of both Redguards and Bretons lasted long after the war was over. The most peculiar situation arose in the city of Dragonstar, where the city was divided into the western and eastern sections of the city, walled off from each other, with each section having its own government and a desire to take control of the entire city, even resorting to acts of terrorism. The situation persisted for at least 30 years afterwards. Jagar Tharn and Pergan Sul would use this war to create the Shadow of Conflict, also called Umbra Keth. This is where the events of Elder Scrolls Travel's Shadowkey take place, and you can check out our video on Shadowkey for a deeper explanation. The invasion of Battlespire by Mehrunes Dagon is also thwarted by the Apprentice. Year 398. Archbishop Calaxes disappears. The bastard son of the Emperor was rumoured to have advocated full-scale rebellion against the Emperor. He is never heard from again. Come the year 399, the Eternal Champion slays the evil Jagar Tharn and rescues Emperor Uriel Septim VII from imprisonment in Oblivion. The 5-year war between the Bosmer and Khajiit also comes to an end, and Orsinium, a vast tract of land between Menevia and Wayrest, is passed to the Orcish people. Orsinium also applies for provincial status and makes peace with its longtime enemy, Wayrest. Gortwog Gronagrom is Orsinium's leader. The 5th and final century of the Third Era begins in the year 400, and Dagoth Uthol of the 6th House occupies the ancient Dunmer fortress called Kogoron, and uses it as an advanced base for Dagoth operations. The 6th House had been growing in power since the end of the Second Era. Blightstorms become more common and widespread. Soul sickness spreads in the regions closest to Red Mountain. Year 401, Nulfarga, mother to King Lysandus of Daggerfall, finds the exact location of the Mantella, the heart of the Numidium. Daggerfall's census concludes that the city has a population of 110,000. Year 402, the War of Bettany begins. Several battles occur and King Lysandus is ultimately killed in the year 403 during the Battle of Cringane Field. King Gothred succeeds him, and Gothred went on to win the war for Daggerfall. Year 405, the events of Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall begin, with an agent being sent to investigate the death of King Lysandus and to find the missing letter the Emperor sent to the Queen of Daggerfall. In the year 407, Kazag, a Khajiit slave, kills a number of slavers, particularly around the city of Tyr. He is helped in this by Pelaya, the daughter of a slaver named Serhio Dress Mingawa. The story is documented in the last scabbard of a crash. Year 410, the 6th House founds bases in Narmok and Vivek City, expanding their influence. Year 411, fear grows among the dissident priests of Morrowind who reject the tribunal gods, as rumours circulate that the temple will soon begin a crusade to stamp them out. Year 414, King Lethlin of Morrowind revokes the centuries-old temple ban on trade and settlement in Vardenfell. Previously, it had been a temple preserve, largely uninhabited and underdeveloped, but now floods of imperial colonists and Dunmer come to the previously sparse populations of Vardenfell. The exploitation of valuable sources of ebony and glass also occurs. By the year 415, the 6th House now have a cell in every town of Vardenfell. Year 417 is one of the most important years in history. The Numidium is activated once again and the dragon break called the Warp in the West occurred. To understand this better, check out our extended video on dragon breaks out in the description, which explains this all in greater detail, but the long story short is that a miracle of peace occurs when the agent, the protagonist of Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall, activates the Numidium, which means the 44 independent kingdoms, counties, baronies and duchies surrounding the Iliac Bay were condensed into 4: Daggerfall, Sentinel, Wayrest, and Orsinium. Meanwhile, in Morrowind, the tribunal gods Almalexia and Sotha-Sil lose the artifacts Keening and Sunder to the minions of Dagoth during a battle at Red Mountain. Vivec rescues them but fails to recover the artifacts. They retreat from Red Mountain in disorder and return to their respective capitals, continuing to perform their ritual functions, but soon stop appearing in public altogether. They grow weaker without access to the Heart of Lorkhan, and because of the resources required to support the Ghost Fence. Year 421 is the year the Empire passes the Levitation Act, which bans the use of levitation magic within the Empire. Graywyn Blenwythe, a member of the Dark Brotherhood, believes that Sithis has ordered him to remove all non-vampires from the Dark Brotherhood. To achieve this goal, Grenwyn founds the Crimson Scars. The Crimson Scars are later killed by the Black Hand upon discovery of Grenwyn's plot. Year 423, Corvus Umbranox, Count of Anvil and husband of Melona Umbranox, disappears. He takes on the mantle of the Great Fox, leading the Thieves Guild. Year 426, the 6th House begins assassinating prominent Imperial citizens and House Lalu sympathizers. The Telvanni Council objects to the injunctions being placed on the slave trade, which it claims are guaranteed by the terms of the Treaty of the Armistice, and the Telvanni Council will not entertain any discussions of abridgments to those rights. High Imperial tax rates cause a revolt in Balmora, which is forcefully put down. Year 427, the events of Elder Scrolls III Morrowind take place. The Nerevarine is discovered, becomes Hortator, and defeats Dagoth destroying the Heart of Lorkhan. Almalexia goes insane, kills Sotha-Sil and tries to kill the Nerevarine. She fails and is defeated. Only Vivec remains alive of the Tribunal Gods, though he would soon disappear. The Nerevarine travels to Solstheim and stops the Blood Moon prophecy from being fulfilled, and so ends the Golden Age of the Dunmer. In the year 431, Archmage Hannibal Traven brings many reforms to the Mages Guild, most notably the further restrictions and banning of necromantic practices. The Knights of the Thorn is founded by Farwill, son of Count Andal Indaris of Cheydinhall. Adventurers also discover the Akaviri blade called Duskfang or Dawnfang, depending on the time of day. Year 432, the 3rd edition of the Pocket Guide to the Empire is published, and in the year 433, the final year of the Third Era, is where the events of Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion take place. Uriel Septim VII, after a reign of 65 years, is assassinated by the Mythic Dawn. Mankar Cameron's plot is revealed. Martin Septim, with the help of the hero of Kvatch, thwarts Cameron's plot. Martin sacrifices himself to defeat Marin's Dagon and close shut the jaws of Oblivion forever. His death marks the end of the Septum Dynasty. The Knights of the Nine are reformed and defeats Umaril for good. The Grey March occurs and is stopped by the hero of Kvatch in the Shivering Isles, and the hero would later mantle the Daedric Prince, becoming the new Sheogorath. The Blackwood Company is defeated by the Fighters Guild, the Dark Brotherhood is purified, an Elder Scroll stolen by the Thieves Guild, and Manamako defeated by the new Archmage of the Mages Guild. Of course, this history is best experienced by playing the wonderful game that is the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. So ends the Third Era, 433 years of Elder Scrolls history, the beginning and end of the Septum Dynasty, a dragon break that would bring the miracle of peace to the ever-feuding Iliac Bay region, and the fall of the living gods and end of the Dunmer Golden Age. The Third Era is where all the mainline Elder Scrolls games had taken place until Skyrim came about and skipped the timeline forward 200 years. That is 200 years of history in the Fourth Era that you'll have to catch up on in the next Era Explained video when we make the Fourth Era Explained. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this little history lesson, and if you did, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for future content like this. My name is Scott from FudgeMuppet. This was the Third Era Explained, and I'll be back to nerd out with you again next time.